How to lay a concrete slab. Difficulty level 2 hammers. If you want a patio, a screed for a garden shed, or a base for your garage or new extension, you should consider laying a concrete slab, 10 to 15 centimeters thick. There is a simple way of doing this, but you need to pay careful attention to preparing the foundations, adjusting the formwork, the iron subframe, and building rules and regulations. You will need some rubble or hardcore, ungraded aggregate, sand, timber formwork, wooden posts, mold release oil, plastic waterproof membrane, PVC expansion joints, a welded square mesh subframe, shims for spacing, binding wire, and grey cement. You will need a tape measure, a ball of string, a spirit level, a shovel, a spade, a rake, a concrete spreader, a mason's tamping tool, a brush, a box cutter, an angle grinder with a metal cutting disc, wire cutters, pliers, a cement mixer, a bucket, a trowel, a wheelbarrow, a long mason's ruler, and a float. You should wear heavy-duty gloves, protective clothes, and rubber boots. Marking out the site. Measure and mark out the area of your slab using a timber post at each corner. Tie a length of cord between the posts. If possible, extend the site at least 30 centimeters beyond the intended finished area to make it easier to work around the edges, and to cater for the thickness of the timber formwork and posts that need to be installed inside the site. Excavating. To ensure that the patio drains properly after heavy rain, it should be at least 15 centimeters above the ground. Given that, the solid foundations should be around 15 centimeters thick, to which you must add at least 10 to 15 centimeters of slab, or a total of 25 centimeters. This means that the site will have to be 15 centimeters deep. Excavate the soil to the desired depth and check that the bottom of the site is level using a long mason's ruler and a spirit level. For an area up to 10 square meters, you should be able to dig out the site manually. For a bigger site, you should hire an excavator for a day. The stone foundation. First, spread a 10 centimeter layer of ungraded aggregate or hardcore to construct stone bedding for your foundations. Make the surface as level as possible by spreading by raking over the surface. Then add a layer of hardcore around 5 centimeters thick. Spread it carefully with a rake and tamp it down using the mason's tamping tool. Fixing the timber planks. Outside, as well as being used as a guide when pulling the mason's ruler and leveling the concrete, the timber formwork will also hold the liquid concrete in place while it dries. You should therefore use 25 mm thick timber planks and solid posts. The top of the timber planks should be the same height as the slab. Outside, identify an area with a slight slope towards the garden, around 1 centimeter per meter, to help rainwater drain. Assemble the formwork carefully, supporting it with battens. The slope is not a problem when building a slab for a garden shed or garage. Paint the timber planks with mold release oil. If the patio is adjacent to the house, the surface of the slab, complete with all its finishing layers, tiles, paving stones, etc., must be at least 15 centimeters from the finished interior floor surface of the house. The waterproof membrane. Protect your slab from rising damp by layering a sheet of PVC membrane across the surface of the stone bedding. If you have to lay several widths of membrane, overlap each by 15 to 20 centimeters. Natural expansion. Variations in temperature will cause your concrete slab to expand slightly. To avoid the concrete cracking over time, we recommend you partition the slab into several sections. The usual way of partitioning the slab is to use oiled timber planks, 5 to 10 mm thick, which can be removed once the concrete has set. Then, the gaps can be filled with polyurethane mastic. It is easier to use PVC expansion joints designed to remain in place. Space out the joints to divide up the slab, with a gap between each of them equal to the length of your mason's ruler. Adjust the expansion joints to be aligned with the timber formwork and fix them in place with a mound of concrete. If your slab is adjacent to the house, you should use a compressible 10 mm thick strip to allow for natural expansion. Laying the welded subframe. Place a section of welded subframe at the base of each section of the formwork. Use an angle grinder with a metal cutting disc to cut the subframe 5 cm from the edging to ensure the subframe is completely covered by concrete and cannot touch the timber planks. If you need to use 2 sections of subframe to cover an area of the formwork, overlap the 2 pieces by 1 mesh square and join them together using binding wire. Raising the subframe. To ensure that the entire subframe is completely covered by concrete, use shims to raise the subframe 4 to 5 cm. Alternatively, you can use breeze block offcuts. The concrete mixer truck. If the slab is large, have ready mixed concrete delivered. The concrete mix is poured from the truck through a hopper, directly to where it is needed. Using the cement mixer. You need 350 kilograms per cubic meter for a reinforced concrete slab, which is made up of 1 bucket of cement, 2 buckets of sand, and 3 buckets of gravel, together with half a bucket of water. In order to calculate the volume you need to fill the area, multiply the surface area of your slab by its thickness. You should pour out all concrete in one single action. There is no problem using a cement mixer, but it's a good idea to have some help. Similarly, it's a good idea to place the cement mixer, the sand, and the gravel near the formwork to save multiple trips with the wheelbarrow. Laying the concrete slab. Pour and flatten the concrete as you go, pulling the mason's ruler towards you while resting on the timber formwork and the expansion joint. Use a gentle sideways to and fro movement with the mason's ruler, working backwards. If there are any gaps in the concrete, add a shovel or 2 of mix to fill it and level the surface again with the ruler. Troweling the surface. When the leveled concrete begins to set, it's time to use the float. Rubbing the surface with circular movements helps the water rise and evaporate. In the summer months, protect your slab from the sun to avoid it drying out too quickly. After a few days, you can remove the timber formwork. You can use the slab as it is, but you should wait a month or 2 if you want to lay tiles on it.